Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of GeoPath's Out of Home Office Hours. This is Scott Fischetti of GeoPath, and I'm here with Dylan Maben.
Good afternoon.
How's everybody doing today? This is the 10th in our series on the more development and the GeoPath Insight Suite, which is what we're using to refer to the ultimate set of tools that will be delivered to the industry. And today we're going to be talking about how to uncover insights using the hourly data. And this has been a little bit of a series we've been doing. So we had an overview webinar on hourly data when it was coming. We did one on how to use the tool. And today we want to talk about how to apply some of those insights. So looking at the data, what are some insights you can start to derive from that? So just quickly, just quick agenda. So I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of hourly impression, and then I'll do a quick demonstration of the tool again, just for those of you who haven't been able to see it on any of the other webinars. And then Dylan will talk through some of the, like I said, the insights we're deriving from the hourly data currently. One piece of logistics, though, as always, if you have questions, we'll pause throughout, but please reach out using the questions widget in the GoToWebinar tool itself. And we'll pause and try to answer any questions as we go through. So why does this matter? Like, why is hourly data, this level of granularity, important for us as an industry? And what does it mean? So it's really about understanding that audience behavior at a much more granular level really helps provide context into how the audience is being distributed throughout the day. And then you can start to think about that in terms of overall markets, different types of formats, and comparing the different types of formats and seeing what their patterns are of audience delivery throughout the day. And then even looking at within a market, different neighborhoods, you know. And so all this starts to give you that level of precision that we've been talking about with more, that level of granularity, that level of more detailed insight to help you understand, like, what areas, formats, markets are best suited to delivering your specific audience at the times you're trying to reach them, because you, again, have that level of understanding of where they are in terms of being overall delivery throughout the day, and that can inform other decisions. And you've probably, if you've been on any of these, you've seen this before, but I think one of the key things for us is, you know, it allows, hourly impression data allows us to understand those patterns at the individual panel location, so you start to see and be able to understand what's peak season. Is there a prime time for any particular piece of inventory? And if so, what is that? And how does that inform decision-making, creative decisions, decisions on which, you know, how to build a package, et cetera. And then being able to look at vehicular and pedestrian audience, again, as we said, that level of granularity by hour, by day of week, by month, again, what that allows us to do, and you'll start to see in some of the insights that we pulled for you what that really means. And again, I always want to make sure we're saying that this is beta data. It's for non-commercial use, and it's really intended for us as an industry to start to explore this level of data and what it really means to us as an industry. So I'm going to jump to the tool and give everybody a quick overview of it as well. Like I said, I'll show you how to get to it and where it is. So right now I'm on the home page. You should be seeing that on your screen. I just want to make sure. Okay. So you can get to it by going to the membership tab. Boom. Click there and scroll down, and you'll see seasonal hourly data, and that's where we are. And you'll be taken to this landing page. And there's a few things here I want to point out. So there's a little video tutorial that you can, shows you how to walk through and pull the information, as well as a downloadable PDF user's guide. But if you haven't seen it yet, once you get into the tool, you'll see that it's pretty straightforward. So I've logged in already, so it's taken me to this screen. But if you haven't, you would just log in using your current ADS credentials. And if you don't have those, you can email us at geekout@geopath.org, and we can set you up with that. So the first step is to select the market. And you can select, obviously, what's here, DMA, CBSA, or the county level. And if you've created any custom areas in your current ADS profile, those will be ported in automatically as well. So for today's example, I'll just pick a CBSA. I'll go with Chicago. And it autofills for you. And then once you set your market, you start to look at the panels, right? And right now what it's showing is all of the inventory in the Chicago CBSA. But if you want to, you can easily format or filter rather by different providers, different media types. Oops, sorry. If you know the panel ID or the unit ID, you can enter those. And Dylan, just correct me if I'm wrong, panel ID is basically our GeoPath ID, or TAB ID. So
GeoPath ID, yeah.
Formerly known as the TAB ID. Or you can even type in a location. So if you want to see all of the inventory in a particular street, you can just do that, a particular avenue. So just searched for all of the inventory on Michigan Avenue. And it's doing that. And then you start to look at the different pieces of inventory in the market. I'll select a handful of different pieces of inventory for this example. So let me see. So I've selected 3 different pieces of inventory, and you hit next. And this is where you can start to decide and filter by time of day. So right now it's set for every hour, every day of the week, for every hour, for every day, for every month. And you can easily click the different times you want to look for. You just click off the ones you don't want to see, which I'm doing now. You can scroll, use this tool to pick the time frame you want to look at, as well as the month. I often like to start from this level because I think it's really interesting. You can see the seasonality that if any exists, and then you can work backwards and adjust if you need to. So this is where I always recommend starting from. And loading it, and it's loading in those 3 pieces of inventory that I've selected. And they're all going to be on Michigan Ave because I've filtered for that and at different points of it. So this little bubble here is showing you that we're looking at this piece of inventory first, and here it is. And you can start to see the pattern by hour of day throughout the week. I'll come back up and talk about that a little bit more. Here's the 18 plus average weekly impression by month, and then additional information. You see here the total weekly impressions broken out by vehicular, pedestrian, and then other additional information available. So this piece I chose doesn't, you can see the monthly average impressions by the average weekly impressions by month. Sorry about that. Here along here, and then it's pretty stable. This one, there's a tiny bit of seasonality, but not a ton. And then you can go up here and see the different patterns by day of week. And you can see there's definitely some differentiation here throughout the week. On Friday, there's definitely an earlier start to the impressions throughout the day. And a couple different, on Sunday, another different pattern here, where you get a little bit more of a bump throughout the midday, which is not uncommon for a Sunday. People tend to get out, but they get out later in the day, and you see that bump later in the day, but then quickly drop off. But the rest of the week is largely pretty consistent. And sometimes I get questions on what these numbers mean, these data points. So these points represent the percent of that for that hour of the day, for that day, the percent of weekly impressions. So 1.04% are delivered on Monday at 10 a.m. of those weekly audience impressions. And you can print this or send it to a CSV file, which I'll do quickly now for you. And open it. Oh, I don't know where my cursor's going. Here it is. And you'll see right here that all of the, sorry about that. And here it is. You can see it for, and since we pulled for the entire year, there's going to be for every hour of the month, of the average month on Sunday, data for each January Sunday it's 24 hours, Monday, et cetera, all the way through. And then you can start to work with this data. And this is going to be important. I wanted to show you this because there's some implications to how you can access this data and start to work with it. But I wanted to show you what the data looks like before we get into the examples that Dylan's going to take us through. And just so also to tab through and see the other inventory that I selected, you just click here, you can tab it, or you can actually click on the actual map itself. And you could just see as I was doing that, each of these pieces of inventory, even though they're on Michigan Ave, each have their unique profile, right? Another thing I want to point out too is that you can look by pedestrian traffic as well as vehicular. And there'll be some cases where you won't, when you hit pedestrian, you won't see any, and that's largely because there isn't any, right? It's say you're on a highway and you do not see that level of traffic. And I want to pause to see if there's any questions. I know we've demonstrated this before, but again, I wanted to make sure if you hadn't seen it, you got a chance to work with it, know where it is. And Dylan, is there anything else you would like to add about this?
I think that this example right now that's being highlighted has a really good pattern that reflects the local neighborhood. You're seeing the working behavior.
Yes.
So all of the weekday activity is very heavy, a little bit of probably tourist activity even on Saturday, but Sunday very, very, very tame, very calm in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And just like you were saying, the times that people get up and get moving on Sundays, as we all know, is a little bit slower than other days of the week.
Right. And you know, another thing too to note, you'll see the line for Monday, and often from Monday through Thursday, it's pretty much the same pattern. So those other days are underneath this line. So I'm going to turn off Monday right here, and you can see how Tuesday has the same pattern, and similarly for Wednesday, Thursday. So you can easily click those on and off like that. Cool. Great. So I'm going to hand it off to Dylan, and we'll go back, and he'll start to talk to you a little bit about some of the moving from data to insights using our hourly impressions. And we've broken it out in a couple of different types of comparisons that we want to talk to you about today.
Great, thanks, Scott. So there's a couple of different ways that we can break down these comparisons. And what we did here was we looked at market averages and broke that down by media types or just markets themselves or different types of media, grouping them together. And what we're going to do here first is sort of look at the largest aggregation level, just looking at market comparisons. What are the personalities of the various markets? What types of behaviors are we seeing on different hours of the day and days throughout the week? So what we did here, we're not going to reveal what markets these were because we're really just trying to highlight here that these are the types of capabilities that everyone should go into to try to unveil themselves. So this first one, we're going to look at two similar markets. These are both large markets, actually. But what you're seeing here, these are major metropolitan areas, and you're seeing a very heavy activity early in the morning. We're dropping off a little bit throughout the day with a little bit of a bump in the afternoon during commuting hours. Again, as we all know, that's sort of the behavior of traffic throughout the day. And then also, we don't expect all markets to be the same. So we've pulled in another market here, and this is a very different pattern where you're seeing relatively stable throughout the daylight hours. And actually, in fact, the sort of peak audience delivery being in the afternoon hours as opposed to the other market where it's early in the morning. We also can look at different comparisons by format. Lots of different formats in every market, and this is going back to looking at one individual market, all of the different format types and how the distributions of audience are throughout the day. Now, this chart isn't showing that one media type delivers more impressions than another during the day. What this does is just shows the distribution of those impressions relative to that format itself. So they're essentially normalized against each other, but you're seeing in this case the receptacles, which would be sort of recycling bins in a downtown area that have advertising on the side of them. They get a lot of activity in the early morning, and you see that a lot in some of these urban areas where there's business districts, especially a lot of activity as people are getting to work in the morning and as people's days transition, either people leaving work early, going to meetings, offsite, things like that. People's activities in those areas sort of tail off throughout the day. Where you're seeing other media types like digital bulletins in this case, where you're getting a spike in the morning and a spike in the evening, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Comparing two format types, just lumping all digital and all non-digital inventory together, you're seeing that the digital inventory has a neat characteristic where it's a little more sensitive to things like congestion, because congestion increases the dwell time of the audience near those locations so they can see more advertisement spots or more plays, thus increasing the impact of during those hours. Again, these are all relative to themselves, so we're just showing that the sort of peaks for digital is in the morning and the afternoon. And then we can go on to another market. This is a separate market, which you can see with many, many, many different types of media types, and a lot of formats getting this sort of early AM pattern, but that's not the only pattern that you see. You do see some that actually have afternoon peak delivery. So it's very, very interesting when you start digging into this, that it really depends on the format type, the media type, and then also the neighborhood. We can jump into it in a second, the different neighborhoods that you'll see, just sort of the level of detail that you can get into.
Before we jump in, it looks like there's a question.
Sure.
I just want to check it out and see what it is. Sorry. We could see the traffic counts labeled on the bar charts on the hourly impressions. It looks like part of the question might have gotten cut off. So we'll come back to that. If you can, if there's an additional part to that that got cut off, if you can retype it for us, that'd be great. Otherwise, I could follow up with you directly afterwards.
So what we're going to compare here is just the difference between a digital format versus its non-digital counterpart. What I want to highlight here, and everyone to take away from this, is the fact that the congestion patterns are really what are going to be driving some of these unique peaks throughout the day. In this case, the blue bulletins, where you're seeing more activity in the morning than in the afternoon and in the evening. But what you see is that that's somewhat accentuated on the digital inventory, again, because of the greater influence of congestion on audience delivery for digital bulletins. So you see that it sort of spikes a little bit more. Same thing for a market where you're seeing afternoon congestion, that the digital bulletins are a little more sensitive to that and also react with a higher impression rate relative to their daily distribution. Here's another example where you're getting the morning and the evening, and this it gets congestion, heavy congestion in the morning and the evening, so you're getting two very significant, relatively significant spikes in the morning and afternoon for the digital formats. So this is one of the reasons why we ended up getting down to this level of precision by hour, because we know that it's at that level of granularity that the unique patterns of those local marketplaces really shine. And also we wanted to make sure that we are capturing that level of detail so that we can truly reflect the audience delivery. Now, when we start looking at within a particular marketplace, forget different media types, but just the neighborhoods themselves, this is also something else that you may want to take into consideration. And of course, that the audience delivery is going to mirror the activity in those neighborhoods. Now, if you're familiar with the East Village in New York City, there's a lot of social activities there. It's a restaurant area, a lot of student activity near New York University. So you're getting people that are getting up, activity throughout the entire day, going a little bit later into the evening, and then even late at night. Very different from another location here in the New York market. This is the area around the Lincoln Tunnel, where the congestion patterns are very significant during the morning and evening commute. So you're getting two very high peaks in the morning relative to that hourly average, which is that sort of that baseline normative in red. Getting into other areas that carry very unique patterns. This is Federal Center in Washington, D.C. This is just south of the Washington, D.C. Mall. There's really nothing here except government buildings. So there's really no purpose of someone's activity in this area except for going to work. So you're seeing a lot of activity early in the morning for that commuting, and again, dropping off throughout the day. Very little, if any, activity late at night. Comparing that to a lively nightlife area, this is the Las Vegas Strip, you're seeing activity throughout the day, constantly, with the somewhat familiar pattern in the middle of the day, but it doesn't drop off as much as it does in other areas. And you even see a little bit of a spike again late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, as people are still active in those areas. So this is something that we find very helpful when we start looking at this information, not only from an analytical standpoint, but when you're talking to clients, or if you're trying to help people to understand how GeoPath goes about calculating audience. When you see this level of resolution, you start to see patterns that are very much reflective of the expected behaviors in those marketplaces, and that can help provide a fair amount of confidence for individuals when they're trying to understand what's going on over here at GeoPath and how we're arriving at these metrics. So we wanted to review some of those key takeaways, and I'll hand it back over to Scott to talk about that.
Right, and you know, the thing for me too, I love the idea of what you were talking about, the context, but I'll kind of go back up to the first takeaway. You know, this the hourly impressions, you know, they allow us to really, and I don't think we can say this enough, it's really about understanding and reporting on overall audience delivery at a more granular level than we've ever been able to do before. While this level of data was, you know, seasonality, et cetera, was in our current ratings, that it would get normalized out because we're reporting on one number, right? That's the same in January as it is in December. But now having this level of granularity, it allows us to really understand and better reflect the local market behavior, market-wide behavior of, you know, and even reflect that back on the inventory, right? And so as Dylan just said too, that allows us a greater level of, and it allows you to build confidence when you're talking with clients, talking with advertisers about why this is important, why this level of information is helpful, but also kind of where we're going as an industry. And that level of context, right, is key. You know, I love the example about the DC example, right, that really hit home for me about it's really about the context of where that audience is and the surrounding area. And that helps identify the strengths of particular neighborhoods, particular media types that you're needing to deliver, you know, understand the delivery of audience at a particular time, or a particular time of day or day of week, and even just overall markets themselves. So just in general, this level of granularity gives us that level of detail that we've been seeking to really make more informed decisions, more informed recommendations, and just greater understanding of the overall context of how our audience is being delivered. And just wanted to pause here again and see if there's any questions, any other questions about what we've shown, our early impressions, or anything like that as well. Okay. One thing we wanted to leave you with is, you know, like, obviously we've pulled the data and looked at it. Just one simple exercise that you can try to do on your own and really start to just see how easy it is to look at this data and to start to derive insights out of it. And if you try this and do have questions, you can always reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. We're happy to help out. We want to make sure people are getting value out of this data. So what you can do is, same thing, you know, set up an example like I did and pull each of those pieces of inventory, right, and create a little mini package out of that. You can do that by just copying and pasting the data columns into one spreadsheet and taking the average of that and graphing that, and that becomes your market average for that, your average for that package rather. And then identify a single piece of inventory within that package and start to compare. How does it move? What is its pattern compared to the overall package? And start to see what insights you can derive from that. You know, does that have more of a morning? Does the piece of inventory have more of a morning average, you know, higher morning audience than the rest of the package? Well, that allows you to really start to make assumptions and really start to make recommendations. Maybe that piece of inventory within the overall package could be better suited for a different piece of communication, a different piece of messaging than other pieces within the package. So that's just a simple exercise you can start to do to start to actually work with this level of data versus just pulling it and looking at it within the context of the tool. Again, any other questions? Happy to pause again for a moment before we sign off. But again, I do want to say thank you to everybody for joining this. This will be available on our YouTube channel within the next day or so. But as always, if you do have questions, reach out. And you know, geek out at geopath.org anytime. Anything else, Dylan?
No, thanks for everybody.
All right, I don't see any other questions, so I just want to say, again, thank you for your attendance, and we'll check back with you next month with another update.